Hello class, I'm your instructor, Professor Frost, and I wanted to go over chapter 1 in your book, and it's all about public speaking and becoming a public speaker. So it's one of the skills that's important for you to climb the ladder of success in your career. You're more likely to get hired if your company the company that you're interviewing for sees that you've got experience in public speaking. So you want to develop this skill so that you can represent the company well when you begin to work for them. When we do speak, we want to draw on our conversational skills. When we speak, we normally use gestures. We vary our tone, our volume, right? The rate that we speak. And we do the same thing when we're speaking in public. We have that eye contact, of course, and we have facial gestures. We smile or we frown or we look shocked, perhaps. So we can put this all to work when we do record our speeches. Okay. We have to respect our audience. We have to know that everybody is different. Not everybody has the same frame of reference. They don't know the same things that you do. So you have to make sure that you explain things when you're speaking. So and in your planning stage, when you are planning your outline for your speech, if there's a question in your mind, then answer that question then, so that when you go to give your speech, your audience won't have any questions in their mind, especially if they don't have the same frame of reference that you do in any particular subject matter. So let's look at the interactive communication process. So we have a source of the message, and that is the sender of the message. And that sender encodes the message and sends it through a channel. It goes through our voice box and out through our mouth, right? And then we have a receiver of the message that decodes the message. And they also give feedback, whether it's nonverbal or verbal feedback. Usually it's going to be nonverbal while you're speaking. They may be nodding their head, yes or no, or they might have a puzzled look on their face. And so you pick up on these things when you're looking at your audience, when you're speaking, and if you see those looks of maybe they look puzzled, then you need to go back and say, well, let me reiterate what I'm saying. Let me explain it a little bit different so that they understand what you're saying. And so also, when you send a message, there can be noise. Okay, there can be different types of noise. There's external physical noise, which could be distractions in the surroundings. Like, say, for instance, you're invited to speak someplace and all of a sudden there's construction going on that you didn't know before was going to happen. So you're going to have to speak a little bit louder so that your audience can hear you. Maybe you'll need a mic. Make the best of a situation that you're in. Try to make the best of it and shut any doors so that the noise is less heard. Then also maybe you can ask your audience to please make sure that they turn their phones down so that you don't hear the ringers going off, because that can be distracting. Perhaps there's people talking in the hallway, so you need to, like, again, shut that door so that it's not distracting. Then you have internal physiological noise that can interfere with your message, sending or receiving the message, which could be maybe you're not feeling well that day that you're speaking, or maybe as an audience member, you're not feeling well either. And so that can be maybe you haven't eaten, you have a headache, maybe you have a stomach ache, you're just not feeling well. So that can interfere with the message. Then you have also internal psychological noise that can occur. And that can be things like maybe you're not used to other cultures. And so you might have a speaker that's from a different culture. And even language is a barrier too. And also physiological, you can have biases. You can already have preconceived notions about the speaker if you've heard about them before. That could interfere psychologically. Maybe you just don't like the person. Maybe you don't like the way they look. That can also interfere with the message. So all of these things that you have to consider when it comes to the noise in that communication process. Okay, so it's kind of the communication goes around in a circle. Okay, so it starts with the receiver and it goes through a channel. The message goes through a channel, and it's received by the audience, and then in turn they decode that message, they encode it, and then they decode it, and they can give you feedback as well. Okay, so always keep these things into consideration when you are speaking. Okay, the next chapter is chapter 2, and it says from A to Z, an overview of a speech. So one of the first things you have to consider is analyzing your audience. You have to know a little bit about them. Sometimes when you're asked to speak at a place, you can ask the person that invited you to kind of describe the audience you'll be speaking to, maybe their age, some of the demographics of the audience, their age, their education levels are important. Possibly also, their age, males and females, apparent cultural and socio-economical backgrounds. Take these considerations into account as you select your topic as well, and when you draft your speech, focusing on the ways you can relate it meaningfully to this particular audience. Okay. Now, you're also going to have to select topics when you're speaking. So you need to you can start out by brainstorming a little bit. You can do, well, first of all, you can do preliminary research to try to select a topic, and also you need to narrow it down. When you're asked to speak, you're normally going to be, maybe there'll be suggestions about what you can speak about. If it's for your job, you'll definitely know what it is you'll be speaking about. Maybe you're going to inform an audience about a certain service that you have, or maybe you're going to persuade them to buy a particular product. So you need to also know the purpose of your speech, whether it is to inform or to persuade them. When you're informing them, you're educating them and imparting knowledge. When you're persuading them, you're trying to change their mind some or impart new information, so at least they'll think about it and consider it. Or maybe also meet some type of behavioral objective. Maybe you might want to, you're going to convince them to vote for a particular candidate in this upcoming election, so you're going to try to convince them to go out and vote. Or maybe you want them to support a particular cause and you want them to call in or sign sign a petition to change a certain type of law or regulation. So that's important too, to know when you're going to select a topic. So then once you know what type of speech, and also, wait, let me back up. Also, too, there's special occasion speeches, and this is one that you're going to be doing soon as well. There's eulogies, there's commencement speeches. Those are the most popular ones. Maybe you're going to be a best man at a wedding, or maybe you're going to be the maid of honor, and you've got to give a little speech then. So it's important that you know these special occasion speeches. Perhaps you're going to receive an award. You have to know how to receive that award. So whatever type of speech it is, that's important to know. And then from there, you can go ahead and, like I said, select a topic. Sometimes you'll be, like I said, you'll be told that this is the topic that you're going to speak on. And other times, like in this class, I'm not going to tell you what to speak on. I'll give you the assignment, what type of speech it is. But then you can go and you can select the topic. I can give you examples of topics, but and it has to be something that's legal and something that's beneficial to us. It can't be anything that's illegal. So you can brainstorm to find out what type of a topic. Say you don't know what you want to speak about, so you can brainstorm a little bit by just sitting down in a quiet space and taking a pencil and paper and jotting down some ideas of what you might want to speak about, or things that just pop into your mind. Oftentimes you're going to speak about something that you like, that is easier to speak about than something that you don't have any knowledge about. So you can do that. You can also do the narrow your topic down as well. Once you pick a topic, it can't be very broad. You need to narrow it down. Be more specific about what it is that you're going to speak about. Like, for instance, say you're going to speak about a dog or dogs. Well, do you know how many varieties of dogs there are? So you have to narrow it down to the type of dog that you want to speak about. And what specifically do you want to speak about that particular type of dog? So that's what I mean about narrowing down your topic and making it more concrete. You can Google up informative speeches or persuasive speeches, or even special occasion speeches, and you'll get ideas on perhaps different topics that you can speak about. Okay, and then from there, you have to make sure that you do that research and you develop those main points. You find out what are the most important points that you could speak about for that particular topic. And what is your thesis statement? Ask yourself, well, you say to compose a thesis statement, you start with your general purpose, which would be in your first major speech you'll give. It'll be to inform. And what is it that you're going to persuade, or not persuade, but inform your audience about? So in this example in your book, it says, to inform my audience about the 3 critical steps we can take to combat identity theft. Okay. And then the thesis statement is, the best ways to combat identity theft are to review your monthly financial statements, periodically check your credit report, and secure your personal information in both digital and print form. So those will be the 3 points that you're going to be speaking about. So you need to develop that thesis statement, and around what it is that you're going to be speaking about. And the way to do that is to research that topic and then find out what the most important points are about that topic. And then you can find other sources as well. You might use a couple of preliminary sources, and then you can, from there, you can look into other sources as well for your speech. It says use supporting material to illustrate and prove your main points. Supporting materials potentially includes the entire world of information available to you from personal experience. There's that personal experience to every conceivable kind of credible source. Plan to research your topic to provide evidence for your assertions that you want to make and lend credibility to your message. So you have to have some type of research. In your introduction, you don't necessarily have to have any sources of information, but you might have a quote, and then you might want to, and you'd want to say who that quote is by, if it's known. Okay, so it's important to have structure in your speech. So arrange the speech into its major parts. You have the introduction, then you have the body, and you also have the conclusion. Okay? In the introduction, you prepare your audience by first having an attention getter, and then you introduce yourself and your topic. And you can also talk a little bit about your credibility. Oftentimes the person that will invite you will say a few things about your background, but then he may also, or she may also say that you'll explain a little bit more about your background in your presentation. So then you'll preview the thesis and the main points that you're going to be speaking about in your introduction. Then you want to transition into the body of the speech. So let's begin with our first main point. So develop the main points and illustrate each one with relevant supporting material. Organize your ideas and evidence in the structure that suits the topic, the audience, and the occasion. So you have to think about your language and the clarity of the words that you use as well. And also any visual aids that you might have that you want to use for your speech to enhance what it is that you're saying. And in your body of the speech, you also have transitions that you move in between one point to another. You can have internal summaries and internal previews. So now that I've spoken about this, let's move on to this particular area and why it's important. So you're constantly transitioning from one point to another. You're leading the audience by the hand so that they don't get lost in your speech. And then you want, when you're done with your body, you have 3, no more than 5 main points. If you have more than 5, it's hard for the audience to remember what it is that you spoke about. So once you finish your main points, then you transition into the conclusion. You have a transitional phrase, perhaps, to sum up or in the final analysis. Or let me reiterate. And then you review, once again, you reiterate or you review your thesis and reiterate your main points. And then you leave the audience with something to think about, something memorable at the end. If they take away anything from the speech, it's going to be at the very end if they weren't listening, so that at least they'll take maybe a little bit away. So also, let's look at the outline of the speech. The structure is very important so that you know where you are in the speech and you make sure that it's organized well and that the parts are all there. So like I said, you have the introduction, and then you have the body, and then you have the conclusion. And you have to use, of course, you've got to use the Roman numerals to identify different parts of your speech. And that's why I include attachments on the assignments, so that you'll see how those outlines are laid out for you. So follow them very carefully. They usually will have a formatting for you, and in that format it'll tell you what goes in that particular area. Okay, so you'll see like in here in the book, it has coordinating points, main point 1, then main point 2, and you'll have a subpoint A, subpoint B, subpoint even C, and then you'll have subpoints for each one of those subpoints, and you'll also can have a subpoints for them as well. So you want to have like a 3 by 3 by 3 format for your outline. So you want your body of your intro, of course, that's a given, and your conclusion. And for the body of your speech, you have those 3 main points. For each main point, you have 3 subpoints. For each subpoint, you have 3 subpoints. So that's a 3 by 3 by 3. And you can take it a little bit further if need be. I'd rather add a little bit more to each subpoint, so that by having the subpoints, so that when you go and you rehearse your speech, if you need to cut it down some, you won't destroy your speech so much by cutting too much out of it. And you have to have an organizational pattern as well for that body of the speech. And there are different types, and lend themselves to the different types of speeches for informative and persuasive as well. And that we'll go over more in chapter 12 and 24. Okay. I'll just briefly mention there is a topical pattern, there is cause and effect, there's chronological, there's problem solution. So there are different forms that we'll look at later. Now in chapter 3, it talks about managing your speech anxiety. So you have to identify what it is that makes you anxious. Perhaps it's lack of experience in public speaking, and that's what we're here for, to give you that experience and to help you learn how to organize a speech and plan it and prepare it and present it, and keep presenting so that you'll gain that experience and you'll feel more and more comfortable, and you won't feel as anxious. When you plan and prepare a speech, that's at least 85% of what it takes to have a successful speech. So I emphasize outlining a lot, so that way you're planning it correctly, you're writing it correctly, and then you're going to practice it and have some visual aids, and your speech is going to be more successful because you will have put it together correctly and also researched it yourself with all those supporting materials, and then practiced it, constructed it well, and then practiced it. Okay, so sometimes, like I said, the things that make you anxious are lack of positive experiences or feeling different. The prospect of being in front of an audience makes many of us extra sensitive to our personal surroundings or shortcomings, if you will, such as a less than perfect haircut or an accent, maybe. We think, oh, our audience won't understand us because English isn't our native language. Also, being the center of attention, we're not used to being the center of attention so much, unless you're an only child, maybe. But we're not used to just being in front of a group and speaking, so it does tend to make us nervous. but you have to realize that the audience wants you to be successful in your speeches. So don't let that come in between being successful. Okay? I don't think there's anybody that is perfect, right? So think of it that way. And we're all learning how to do public speaking. Maybe you've had a little experience before, but you'll also learn more here in this course. So when does this anxiety occur? Does it occur at pre-preparation anxiety? Can the problem it can be a problem when we delay planning for the speech. Again, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you have to start early on in preparing your speech. You can't wait until the last minute to prepare and try to fool the audience into thinking that you know what you're saying. Okay? Because they'll see right through that. So you have to make sure that you prepare well in advance. And then sometimes we feel overwhelmed because we have to, because it takes time to prepare a speech. So don't become overwhelmed by waiting until the last minute. Also, it says some people, in the book, it says some people experience anxiety as they rehearse their speech. This is when the reality of the situation sets in. So now you've done all the planning and now you're starting to have that pre-performance anxiety that many speakers get. The more you practice your speech before you give it, the better off you're going to be. So that's why we say you have to prepare, plan, and present, practice and present. And the more you do that, the better off you'll get. Performance anxiety is usually the most pronounced during the introduction of the speech. The first few seconds of your speech, you'll feel that nervousness. But if you've done all your homework and you've planned and prepared and practiced, that performance anxiety is going to go away after a few seconds. And you'll get into your speech and you'll be able to do it without any problems. So here it says use proven strategies to build your confidence. It says prepare and practice. Modify your thoughts and your attitudes. Take away that negative self-talk that you tell yourself, oh, I can't do this, or I don't have any experience in it, or I'm never going to get through this. No, stop all that psychobabble that's in your head and start talking positive statements. Reinforce your thoughts, your negative thoughts with positive thoughts and your attitudes. And continue practicing these these steps until you find confidence and until you feel confident about your speech. So always talk positive to yourself. Don't talk negative to yourself, because you'll believe that in the long run. The way that you think, you'll believe it in the long run. Visualization helps you as well. Visualize yourself giving that speech, a successful speech. You've done your preparing, you've done your planning, you've done your practice. You've laid out what you're going to wear the day before. Make sure it's nice and clean and crisp and ironed well, and you've got your nails done nicely, your polish isn't all chipped, because your audience can see that. So it's kind of, it takes away from your confidence as well. That your hair is combed, you have a little bit of makeup on. Don't go overboard. Unless you're going to be on television, you always want to make sure that you wear enough makeup so that you don't look washed out. So that visualization, the practice of summoning feelings and actions consistent with successful performance. So you see yourself that you have planned and prepared and practiced. You've got that outfit laid out. You've got your PowerPoint uh, slides put together in your thumb drive. You've also got a backup. If you're going to give handouts, you also had those printed, or maybe you're going to email them to your audience. And so you're visualizing yourself walking into the room. You're greeting people as they start to enter the room, because it's easier to speak to an audience that you know than to a room full of strangers. So you get to talking with some of the audience members a little bit. Oh, hi, how are you? Shake their hands so that you don't feel as nervous when you are presenting, and you can make eye contact with some of those people that you met as they were coming in. When you do this visualization and this positive self-talk, it's called cognitive restructuring. So you're restructuring the way you think about this certain situation that you're in, which is public speaking. You can also activate the relaxation responses in your body by briefly meditating. You can sit in a quiet space. Maybe you're laying down in a bed. You're relaxing your muscles, moving your neck to shoulders to arms to the back of the legs. So what you're doing is you're tightening, starting from your calves. You're working up to your thighs, tightening them, tightening your muscles and relaxing them, and then your arms, you want to tighten them and then relax them, and your fist, tighten and relax, and then your shoulders, you want to tighten and relax as well. And that'll help you to draw the blood away from your heart and into those different areas. And that helps to also, and with breathing exercises, you can practice that after you do the muscle relaxation. That will help you to learn how to control your breath and to be able to take deeper breaths down into the diaphragm of your stomach. And you'll be able to project your voice more when you're speaking. But it also helps to slow down that heart rate when you do these, also these breathing exercises. So one of the ones that I teach to do is to breathe in to the count of 4, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Do that about 3 or 4 times, and that'll help you to relax. I do it before I go to bed, because sometimes I'll have trouble going to bed. My mind is going a million seconds a minute, right? And we have so much on our minds that this helps to get you to relax. So those visualization exercises, the positive self-talk, and also the breathing exercises will help you. It also says here, you can meditate. It says here, choose a word or phrase or prayer. Namaste. Those people that practice yoga, they go, You can feel your lips vibrating. Some people like to pray. Hail Mary, full of grace. I often pray before I speak, just to relax myself. Breathe slowly and say it until you become calm, about 10 to 20 seconds is what the book recommends. So if you do these things, that'll help you a lot. Then it moves on to, I got ahead of myself. Use stress-controlled breathing, again in managing your stress. And you can do that, those breathing exercises. So you can do that, the count of 4 for about a week or two. And then by the 3rd week, increase it to 6 seconds. And then by the 4th and 5th week, you can increase it a little bit more to 8 seconds. You can try that. And that'll help you to, again, breathe into the diaphragm and then build up the amount of air that you take in. When you do breathe, you want to make sure that you're standing up straight and your shoulders are back and down and relaxed, so that you take in more air into your diaphragm. And you don't want to be with your shoulders slumped forward, because that prevents you from taking in more air as well. You want to practice good posture when you're practicing your speech, so that, and those breathing techniques before, and positive self-talk before you speak. Sometimes you'll have feedback in the form of evaluations about your speech. And so you can take that feedback and you can look at the things that maybe you need to improve on, and keep doing the things that you did great on. Okay. So as a checklist here in the book, it says prepare and practice early and often, modify your thoughts and attitudes, practice positive self-talk, practice visualization, use stress control breathing, meditation, and other relaxation techniques, incorporate natural controlled movements. You don't want to pace when you're speaking. You don't want to sway your body around, and you don't want to dance either. Learn from the experience of public speaking and enjoy it. Okay, learn to have fun with it. Don't let it be a threat to you. The next chapter, let's see. I've gone over chapter 1, 2, and 3. Also, ethical public speaking is important. In chapter 4, it says, ethics is derived from the Greek word ethos, meaning character. As Aristotle first noted, the foremost duties speakers have toward their audience is to demonstrate positive ethos and good character. If you don't have a good character and you've been unethical throughout your life, it'll reflect in your job, and also most likely in your speaking, because you'll want to do unethical things. Maybe you won't tell the truth, or you may skew information, some of your research that you've looked up for your speech, and you're going to use it, but you're trying to bend it and stretch it so it'll fit into what you're trying to persuade your audience about, but it may not necessarily be true. You also need to respect your listeners' values. Our sense of ethics, of right and wrong actions, is reflected in our values. We have attitudes, beliefs, and values. Attitudes are the easiest to change, and our beliefs and our values are more difficult for a speaker to try to change. Remember that you have the right to free speech, okay, as part of the First Amendment. Hate speech is any offensive communication, verbal or nonverbal, directed against people's race, ethnicity, national origin, gender, religion, sexual orientation, disabilities, and the like. So you don't want to use hate speech at all. Be aware that even under the First Amendment, certain types of speech are not only unethical, but actually illegal. It says speech that incites people to emanate violence or so-called fighting words. Speech that expresses blackmail, perjury, child pornography, or obscenity is against the law. Speech that can be proved to be defamatory or potentially harmful to an individual's reputation at work or in the community is called slander. So you never want to use these types of speech in part of your rights of free speech. If you are talking about public figures or matters of public concern, you will not be legally liable for defamation unless it can be shown that you spoke with a reckless disregard for the truth. That is, if you knew that what you were saying was false, but you said it anyway. So you want to, like I said, guard against those speaking false truths. Beware of heckler's veto. Drowning out a speaker's message with which you disagree is called a heckler's veto. Demonstrates disrespect both for the speaker and the fellow listeners. When you've got somebody in the crowd that's obnoxious and they're yelling all sorts of obscenities at you and everything else, that's just because they disagree with you, that's not acceptable either. So always practice dignity. Refers to bearing and conduct that is respectful to yourself and to others, and also integrity that signals the speaker's incorruptibility, that he or she will avoid compromising the truth of what they're saying. You want to be trustworthy is a combination of honesty and dependability when you're a speaker. So you don't want to mess your reputation up at all as a speaker and lose that credibility. You want to demonstrate, the speaker demonstrates respect by treating the audience members with civility and courteousness. Here's some of this psychological noise that I talked about. Ethnocentrism, where everything revolves around your ethnicity, and no other culture or ethnicity is acceptable, and not just as a speaker but as a listener as well. And also stereotyping, when you have preconceived notions of others because of their race or their culture. You have to refrain from this as well, and we'll get more into that in chapter 15 about stereotyping. Make responsible speech choices. Be responsible mean accountable for what you say to others. Okay. Do I use sound evidence and reasoning? Do I make emotional appeals because they are appropriate rather than to shore up likewise weak arguments, so we can appeal to the audience's attitudes and beliefs? We'll also learn about Maslow's levels of hierarchy for persuasion and all of the appeals like ethos, logos, and pathos when we're talking about persuasive speeches. You want to, when we're talking about ethics as well, you want to avoid plagiarism, and you want to make sure that you cite your information, your quotations, your direct quotes, or your paraphrases and summaries. Always cite, and you're going to be citing in APA style for this course. You'll have direct quotations, paraphrases, and summaries. A direct quotation is verbatim, word for word. Paraphrase is a restatement of someone else's ideas. You never want to steal anybody else's ideas. And then a summary is a brief overview of someone else's ideas, opinions, and theories. So you always want to give credit where credit is due. In the school, if you don't have your bibliography, and if you don't have those in-text sites, and then orally cite them during your speech, as you're saying those direct quotes and paraphrases, it can be construed as plagiarism, and you can be sent to the dean of students and also be suspended from school. If in your job, you could be sued, your company could be sued. So that's why it's important to give credit where credit is due. So you want to respect the copyright laws. Remember bootlegging? People used to bootleg all sorts of information like videos, and how about from television, and also music, and speakers also. They steal information or they copy information, and they think that they're going to get away with it. There was a speech that Michelle Obama gave, and she was getting it from I believe Laura Bush's speech, and it was almost word for word. So you got to make sure that when you are speaking, it doesn't, they're your words. Make them your words. Own your words, and don't be copying other people's speeches as well. Let's look at chapter 25 real quickly, and I'll stop here for this unit that we're doing right now. So for chapter 25, that's the special occasion speeches. It says here, what are the functions of special occasion speeches? It says they stand out from the ordinary rhythm of life, marking passages like as a eulogy, celebrating life's highlights, and commemorating events. Such occasions often feature the observance of important ceremonies and rituals as well as speeches. So a special occasion speech is one that is prepared for the specific occasion and for the purpose dictated by that occasion. Like award ceremony calls for remarks that acknowledge accomplishments, for instance. Okay, maybe it's a speech to celebrate a person, a place, or an event, or a commemoration, a dedication of memorials, or a gatherings held at someone's for someone's honor. Or maybe it's an inspirational speech, a keynote speaker and commencement speech. Or maybe speeches that set social agendas, such as occur at gatherings or cause-oriented organizations, fundraisers, campaign banquets, conferences, and conventions. Listeners expect the articulation and reinforcement of the goals and values of the group. So there are different types of special occasion speeches. They have the speech of introduction, and that's the speech that you're doing. That's your first speech that I gave you to do. So it says a short speech with two goals to prepare or warm up the audience for the speaker and to motivate the audience members to listen to what the main speaker has to say. A good speech of introduction balances four elements: the speaker's background, the subject of the speaker's message, the occasion, and the audience. So you have to even consider your audience when you're doing your first speech of introduction. It says describe the speaker's background and qualifications for speaking. Relate something about the speaker's achievements. Okay. Oh, this is to introduce someone. We're not doing the type of introductory speech where a classmate is introducing you, but instead it's yourself introducing yourself to the audience, which is your classmates. So this particular one they're talking about right here is a speech of introduction when you're introducing someone else. Okay, so it says to describe the speaker's background and qualifications. It says to briefly preview the speaker's topic and ask the audience to welcome the speaker, and then be brief. Speak just long enough to accomplish the goals of preparation and motivation. One a well-known speaker recommends a 2-minute maximum for this type of speech. Okay. Then there's a speech of acceptance, the award speech, and that's the one you'll be doing after your introduction speech. It says you have to prepare in advance, express what the award means to you. Lots of thank yous. And I've included some attachments for this speech as well. So make sure that you read them and you follow the suggestions for the outline format. Express, like I said, express gratitude as well. So it says speeches of presentation. The goal of the speech of presentation is twofold: to communicate the meaning of the award and to explain why the recipient is receiving it. So this would be somebody that is presenting the award to someone else. In your case, you're the one that's going to be accepting the award, so you have to do your acceptance speech. Okay. You can use any type of award that you've ever won, or you can make one up as well. If you've got maybe ribbons from sports, maybe you were most valuable player, maybe you were in the student council, any of those different organizations, and you received awards. Maybe you've gotten an award for volunteering, that also, or maybe you got a promotion at work, and or you were given a monetary award for your performance at work, and you can also, write your acceptance speech for that. So whatever it is, have fun with it, and make sure you have those visual aids, put together some type of an award. And if it's a certificate of any type, you want to make sure that you have it in a frame so that it doesn't flip-flop all over the place. So there's commemorative speeches just about life, not death. A eulogy should pay tribute to the deceased as an individual and remind the audience that he or she is still alive in our hearts. After dinner speeches are another type of special occasion. Speech is just likely maybe a toast or a roast. Those are great types of speeches. They used to be real popular in the 70s. There was lots of roasts and toast going on for different actors. Okay, and you can have canned speeches for certain occasions. Okay, recognize the occasion, connect the speech with the occasion, delivering remarks unrelated to the event may leave the impression that it is a canned speech. But say, for instance, let me give you an example. It's a special occasion and you're going to say the prayer. So you can practice, you can put together a prayer type speech for, say, before you're going to eat dinner. And you may be asked to say the prayer. So, and I'm not trying to shove religion down your throat either. Don't get that impression. But at one point or another, you may be asked to do that. So you might want to have a canned speech. Balance seriousness with lightheartedness. There's, if you're going to tell a joke, make it tasteful and not tasteless. There's a speeches of inspiration, deliberately seeks to uplift members of the audience and to help them see things in a positive light. Sermons, commencement addresses, pep talks, and nomination speeches are all inspirational in nature. You have to appeal to the audience members, use real life stories, be dynamic, make your goals clear, and close with a dramatic ending. There's an example of special occasion speeches, the one by Will Ferrell. That's a real famous one that he gave at USC. Jim Carrey has given some really great speeches as well. Some of the presidents have been invited to speak at some of the commencement speeches. That's a really big honor for them. Some of them are awarded doctorate degrees after they speak, which is really nice too. So I've gone over quite a few chapters tonight, and I want you to go ahead and read your book as well. The chapters are pretty short. That's why I was able to cover so many in this time frame. And go ahead and put together those speeches and practice them, and then record them. If you're not happy with the recording, then do it again. But start early enough so that you'll have time to do it. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask. Make sure, like I said, read those attachments. And I wish you much luck on your first two speeches. Thank you, and have a good evening.